Hello, hello. Let's get our Splunk servers connected to the license manager. So we have this single management host that's doing a bunch of different stuff for us, and one of those responsibilities that it has is to be the license manager. Not every Splunk enterprise instance needs to be connected to a license manager. So, like we discussed in the very first video, I think I put it in there. All Splunk installs, there are kind of two flavors. There is Splunk Enterprise, which is the full install of Splunk that does need a license. And then you have the Splunk Universal Forwarder, which is the agents that live on your endpoints, like end servers, to pull logs in. And that one doesn't need a license, it just has kind of like a perpetual license. For the enterprise installs, there's kind of two subsets there. Pretty much all of your components need to be either connected to a license server, the license manager, or have a license locally installed on it. Really, the only exception is a heavy forwarder. If you have a Splunk Enterprise install that you're dedicating it to only be a heavy forwarder, so all it's doing is taking in logs and forwarding it on to the next host, you don't actually need a license on there. There's a special license that you can set called the forwarder license that's on there, which I'll show you, and you don't need to push out a config to connect it back to the license manager. But if you're going to use that host for anything more than collecting logs and pushing it out, like you're going to use it as a deployment server, it does need to be connected to a license manager. But in our instance, this host doesn't need a license. This one does, the search head. And these do also. But I'll skip these for now because the configs for those are going to have to come from the cluster manager. You don't want to push out configs to an indexer cluster from a deployment server. So I'll focus on just doing the search head and showing you how to do the forwarder license on a heavy forwarder from the deployment, locally on there. And I'll come back to the indexer cluster later on once I have the cluster manager set up in this environment. So first we'll start with the heavy forwarder. If we pop over to the heavy forwarder, we'll go to settings, licensing, and so we can see it's a full enterprise install, but it's on a trial license right now. I'll change license group and click forwarder license and click save. Once you are on the screen, you'll want to do a restart. There is a restart loop that used to happen here. Yeah, so they still haven't fixed it. Instead of going and clicking restart now there, you can just click restart later and then manually go to settings, server controls, and click restart from here. Or you'll just get stuck in that weird loop. So I'll be right back once this is restarted. All right, so this is restarted. I'll log back in. And let's go back to licensing. And now you can see it's on the forwarder license and it can't do any ingest. So I don't know why it says 1 megabyte there, but you can't index anything, or not ingest, I meant index. So you can't send anything to be indexed through this host. It can do parsing and forward it on to the next host, but it can't locally index anything. So that's all that means. So now this is a heavy forwarder, really only meant to collect logs and forward it on to the next host. All of the other functionality that comes with Splunk Enterprise, like being able to search, doing forwarder management, all that kind of stuff is locked out because you have the forwarder license. If you wanted to dual purpose this as like a deployment server or something, again, you have to connect it to the license manager to unlock those features. Even if it's not going to be indexing anything locally, you still need the license to unlock those enterprise or the full Splunk Enterprise feature set. So that's the forwarder management. Let's do the search head. So for the search head, we're going to push the config out from the deployment server. You want to get used to doing that, just because, especially when you have a larger environment, it's just much easier to get into the rhythm of deploying stuff from the deployment server. even though really in this instance it doesn't make all that sense because it's just the heavy search head that we're applying the license to. We don't have a lot of other enterprise installs, but I'll still do it from the deployment server. So this is my deployment server. I'm going to go to Config Explorer. Super useful. If you don't have Config Explorer, I highly encourage you to get it. If not, you can do it from your stage session or RDP or whatnot. So we're going to go to deployment apps and we're going to make a new app in here. And I'm going to call it BC, just my naming convention I'm using for this environment. BC underscore, let's call it license. You can choose a name that, just pick a naming convention and kind of stick to it. Here, I'll do local. And I'm going to also do metadata. Okay, so in local, what we're going to do is go create our server.conf. Server.conf is where the license config lives. And if you're not sure where the config lives and you still want to deploy it out somewhere, you can make the changes. So you can test it on one host to see where that config lands and then go figure out how to put it into an app, or just read the docs. So on the heavy forwarder here, I can go down to system, local, and if I go to server, I would see that like going in here, I can see in server.conf, that's where the license stanza landed. So either read the docs or do it via the GUI or something on one host, and then you can kind of reverse engineer your way to the config, or just read the docs. So server.conf. Now, let's say I don't know what I need to do here. I'm going to go look up the server.conf docs, and I'm just going to go straight down to the example section because it should have an example that works for us since we have a pretty straightforward environment. What we're looking for is our licensing stanza. So let's Control F. Okay, maybe they don't have an example for license. They do not. So instead, we're going to look here in the scroll bar. We can see that this is where the licensing section is. Here is the stanza. It used to be master URI, but it has been deprecated for manager URI, and it gives an example of what it should look like. Cool. And since we're connecting over the management port, we need to use HTTPS. So I'm going to copy this and copy this, and you can copy that as well. So in this server.conf, I'm going to paste in the stanza, paste in the manager URI parameter, and the URL, put the HTTPS in there. And now we need to put the host name for the license manager, which is this host that we're on right now. So let me clean that up. There we go. So cm.barelychili.com. And this is looking good. We can actually get rid of this. There we go. Right, so I'll do Control S to save that. Now back in the metadata folder, you may run into some issues if you don't have the metadata file populated here. So usually you just want to create a new file here, and we'll call it local.meta. And in here, we'll want our default stanza. Let me grab that real quick. All right, so here is our metadata file. So you just want to get into the rhythm of doing this. This stanza is the default stanza, and it just makes sure that the configs in here gets exported globally and that everyone can read and only admin can write. This kind of template should serve well for most of the apps you're creating. So we have the BC license app. We have a local directory with the server.conf. We have metadata with the local metadata file for permissions. The only thing we're missing now is a simple app.conf. And in here, you can add whatever information you want, and I'm just going to say license server. Save. Cool. So we have the app now ready, and the search head is already connected as a deployment client. So I'm going to go over to the forwarder management, and let's look at the apps. So here it is. The BC license is here. So let's go to server classes. And I already have this server class as BC Splunk all, and it just has 2 clients in there. It's just the my heavy forwarder and the search head. Even though we already put the forwarder license on the heavy forwarder, I'm just going to push it out to both of them instead of making a new server class. So what I'll do is click on the BC Splunk all server class. If you haven't made one already, make a new server class. In there, we'll go to configuration, click edit configuration, and add the app in. So BC license, move it over. We have the new app. Click save. And then one thing you'll want to do is we want the host to restart after it downloads this app so that the config can take effect. So right now it says restart agent is no. We'll click the 3 dots and click view details and make sure that restart agent is enabled. And then we can go back to the server class. And that's it. So it's in a pending state right now for both the clients. One of these is the search head. That's a heavy forwarder. This one's the search head. So as soon as it downloads it, it should start trigger a restart. And I should have shown this before. So it's on a trial license at the moment. So any second now, it should download the app and trigger the restart. So I'll give this a second, wait for the restart to go through, and I'll be right back. All right, so it has started its restart, so let's give it a few more minutes. All right, so the search head is back. And we're in the licensing page, and we can see that it's connected to the cluster manager as its license manager. And the heavy forwarder is still going to have a forwarder license since that config lives inside system local and it takes precedence over the config we just pushed out. So if we go to licensing or not, I guess, did I delete the config? Did not. It's still in here in system local. Okay, that's interesting. But so I guess it's gone ahead and taken effect. So maybe there's some stanzas that'll take precedence in the app, even though system local has a config. Either way, we have both the search head connected to the license manager and the heavy forwarder now connected to the license manager. Heavy forwarder, we really don't need it to be connected to the license manager. I'm just doing it because I was lazy with the server class. And the search head, we do need it connected. Even if it's not going to be locally indexing any data, we still want all the other enterprise functionality like searching and so on. So that's it. That's how you get a host connected. You just make that simple app and add it to a server class to get it pushed out and make sure that it restarts the client. Yeah, that's it. So I'll see you in the next one.